Now we are recording. All right. So effective group work is our topic. And in our session today, we'll have a warm-up discussion as usual. We'll have talk a little bit about the rationale. There's a lot of rationale for doing group work, but we'll focus on two areas. We'll talk a little bit about grouping students, different ways we can do it. We will address challenges and issues because nothing is perfect. And then we'll also look at some specific strategies for grouping or to kind of employ with group work, and that can help us mitigate some of the strategies. And then hopefully we'll have some time to reflect. We have Mary Momo with us too. Great. We have a lovely group. Austin says hello. He can't be with you, be with us. He'll follow in the recording, but he is still very busy trying to complete his open course. He has many things going on right now. And this course that he enjoys keeps getting set to the side. So he's determined to catch up and finish it. So just before we go any further, just making sure we're on the same page as to what I mean by group work. This is when we have learners working together. So this could mean that it is just two people, even though we think of that more as a pair, but pair work comes under this broader umbrella of group work. We can have 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s. As the group gets larger than 6, gets a bit unwieldy, in my opinion, but it's still a group. Even if it's 20 people, 50 people, it is a group. And then this is just from the British Council's website, and just briefly mentions some of the advantages of group work. That we have students who are able to speak. It gives them more speaking opportunity. If we think about kind of the old style of teaching, in those language classrooms, oftentimes the only time students speak or use language is talking to the teacher. But if they're working in groups, they have many more opportunities to speak and get feedback. And it's also a lot more comfortable to talk to another student rather than to the teacher, or to have everybody stopping and listening to you as a whole class. There's a social element to it and many other good things. The link to this is at the bottom here, and I'm mostly including it because it has links to these other articles on there. And so you can find this in the PowerPoint. All right, so just to kind of get a feel for what everybody's thinking, I'm curious to know how you feel about group work. Those of you who are teachers and are actively teaching, I'm curious to know, but I'm also curious to know as a participant. We do group work here. When you were students, you did group work. Maybe in whatever you do as a job, you may be called upon to do group work now and again. So I'm just kind of curious to know how you feel about group work. I know from past situations that most of you say you prefer to work in small groups, rather than alone or with a pair. You might have different reasons for that. You might have different thoughts as a teacher. So I encourage you to share your opinions here. You can share in the chat, or of course you can raise your hand and speak with us and share your opinion. Go ahead, Margot.
Good evening, everyone. I can say about group work, it really helps, especially whereby you mix the students who are slow learners and who grasp things faster. For instance, I'll give myself as an example. When I was in school, there are some subjects that were so difficult, like the education and the physical education. But when you mix with others, maybe someone is good in like a volleyball or hockey, and you're good in maybe netball. So when you mix up the topics together, someone brings this top point and you another point, at the end of the day, you have so many points that you can be able to respond, and you learn more from your friend. Then again, it's easier for a learner to be able to learn from a fellow pupil than a teacher, because that time maybe they're fearing the teacher in the class, they're not able to ask the questions, maybe somewhere where they didn't understand, but when you group them together, they'll be able to share freely without fearing any other person. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think you brought in a lot of important points about that kind of comfort, working with your peers. Your method of grouping, you like to put high achieving with a lower achieving and having them mix it up like that. Very good, excellent. And I saw another hand go up. Adara.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. So my opinion on group work is that I like group work because it gives us a room to challenge assumptions, and it also gives us room for us to develop stronger communication skills. So I think it's so important.
I agree. Yeah, it's the opportunity for developing these skills, right? Very good, which are very important, especially I think in our modern society. Thank you. Chairman.
Welcome.
Yes, Mina, how are you?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm also good. Hi to everybody. Hi,
Good.
everyone.
Hi.
Yes, hi. Yeah, so it's a very interesting topic. The first thing I wanted to say is that group work breaks the monotony of the teacher talk or the facilitator talking or the teacher talking throughout the lesson. If the learners are put in groups, it breaks the monotony of the lecture or the teacher talk. And again, group work encourages collaboration because people share and they collaborate, negotiate, and come up with ideas. I think let me end there to allow others also to contribute.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, those are great points. Breaks the monotony, I think is key. Oftentimes in a class, when you say, okay, get in groups, you see just the relief on students' face, right? And then collaboration. I think you often see that as one of those 20th century skills. Excellent. Khadija, go ahead.
Thank you, Mina. Good evening, everyone. I think most of the explanations have been given. Just to add on what have just been said, group work gives the learner a sense of belonging. There are those who will be very shy to speak in front of the class, but when they're in the groups, they'll be very comfortable and they'll share whatever they want to share. And another one, it encourages peer learning. So that will lead to communication, collaboration, and it will make learning very effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it increases that level of engagement and yeah, thereby making it more effective, as you said. Excellent. In the chat, we see that Nancy agrees that group work breaks the monotony. And this is a good point too. It gives a little cover to those who haven't completed the task, right? Instead of standing out as an individual, they can just kind of hide. It gives them a chance to catch up. I think that's also why a lot of us like it with a mixed level class. Those kind of underperforming learners, instead of the whole class seeing their weakness, it gives them kind of some support, a chance to learn, but also a chance to hide a little bit too, right? Judith loves the opportunity for many to participate, right? It maximizes those participation opportunities. Anne says it's great for the reasons given by colleagues. I was waiting for some kind of caveats here. However, if not well handled, some students may feel burdened because they are in some group who does not participate, especially in written work, right? So that student, all the work may fall to them as they see that their peers are not really participating. We may find issues such as Caroline mentioned earlier. She has a student who is smart, able to do the work, but seems to not thrive at all in these group situations. We have other issues as well. I think that we will be seeing come up. No one said that they don't like group work as a participant, which I thought was interesting. Thinking about myself, when it's in terms of discussion, I love group work. I love when the teacher or the facilitator stops and gives a chance for us to talk among ourselves. But I hate group work when we have like a project or something like that. I prefer to work alone. So I think that's interesting. There's different dynamics as well. And you may find your students are similar in that way. Yes, very good. Good point. This group work, and pair work without all eyes on the teacher, basically this is the essence of a learner-centered environment. We cannot have a learner-centered environment without group work. Excellent point, and aligns with CVC. All right, so there are many reasons why group work is helpful, and many areas that we can explore in terms of rationale. But I decided to hone in on these two because they explain the why in kind of two different ways. ZPD, which is the zone of proximal distance, is kind of the behind why group work helps students to learn. And then soft skills is kind of the why in terms of the result. What kind of results do we get out of group work? So we're going to explore these two areas a little bit. So ZPD, as I said, is the zone, I'm sorry, not the zone of proximal distance, but the zone of proximal development, which sounds very scientific and complicated, but it's actually something that's that all of us are aware of. It just gives it a fancy name. So what the ZPD is, it's the gap between what you can do alone and what you can't do at all. So if I take, I'll take a language example. My Swahili is not good, but I can, oh, excellent. Thank you, Frederick. Direct their own learning, right? Some of that autonomy. If I think about Swahili, I can exchange greetings with somebody in Swahili. If they say jambo, and I can say habari, and then salama. And so I can do that all alone. I do it often. I don't know if I do it well, but I do it. Something I cannot do is I cannot read a book in Swahili. I couldn't write a paper in Swahili. I couldn't give this presentation in Swahili. So that's a big gap between something I can do and something I absolutely can't do. The zone of proximal development is that area in between where I may be able to get a little further with a little support. And so something that I think I can't do alone is, this luckily never happens, but if I went to the market and someone was telling me the price of something only in Swahili, I would have trouble. I know my numbers, but I get them confused very easily. But if I had a friend with me whose Swahili was good, if maybe one of you was with me, I would be able to do it. I can't do it alone, but if I have a friend, I can do it. If you're with me, I still can't read a book in Swahili. I still can't give this presentation in Swahili. So that's an example. Another example, I'll give an example. Another teacher, I heard talk about this, Gabe. She said she can drive a car. No problem, she can drive a car. She cannot drive an airplane. Absolutely, she cannot drive an airplane. She could drive a truck if she had help. So in that gap between driving an airplane and driving a car is driving a truck. It's something that she can't do alone, but with a friend, she can do it. So the ZPD is talking about, with the support of others, and this could be peers, or it could be a teacher, what we can achieve. And so by working with others, we can increase our ability. Right. So I think this is one reason why a lot of people like to work in groups. With the help of others, we can go a little further than we can go just by ourselves. I think this is also what we see with low-level learners, what helps them to bridge the gap as well, right? The assignment can't be done alone, but with others, they can manage it, right? They have the support of others. They have different ideas that they're bringing into it. They have support. They can bounce questions off each other. So group work is essential for ZPD. The teacher is another source who can help the learner to go a little bit further, but the teacher is one person. And so, of course, you as teachers, we all are trying to support our students and move a little further with them, but we can't be with them all of the time, especially if you have a class of 60, 80, 90 students. You can't be that person who helps push them. But in a group, they can support each other and they can all push each other a little further. Another great rationale for group work is something that I think was mentioned in a lot of different ways. We heard teamwork, collaboration, communication skills. These soft skills that we talk about, these soft skills of being able to work with others, often also correlate with 20th century skills, are all something that we have to practice and learn through group work. So these are things like teamwork. In our modern jobs these days, we often aren't working alone. We often have to work as part of the team. To be effective in our team, we need to be able to communicate clearly. We need to be able to communicate politely. We need to be able to negotiate, right? We can't always get what we want, so we have to learn polite ways to give a little and get a little. We need to be able to persuade others to go with our ideas or do the things that we think are best. Conflict resolution is a big one, right? One person has one idea, one person has another. If you have little tiny children, this may result in a fight. But through teamwork, we learn these skills of how we can resolve these conflicts and still come out as one team. And then this is also where we have leadership as well too. If students are always working as individuals, they never get this chance. Maybe on the playground, they might get a chance to do it, but in a more organized academic atmosphere, they don't get a chance to learn and practice these skills. I think we all know this school setting is kind of a practice for real world. And so by working in groups, we're kind of mimicking these scenarios that we'll have to end up working in as adults. And this is where they get to practice. And this is where they get to make mistakes in these areas too and learn from them. So there's ways of grouping students, and I think these have been mentioned. I think Margot mentioned earlier, she likes grouping different abilities and levels. So having high learners with low learners and some medium learners, right? This is a very popular way of doing things. It allows low-level learners some support, gives high-level learners a chance to kind of be leaders and take the lead. We've also talked about this in past sessions, working with similar levels. Without saying you are low level, you are medium, and you are high. We can find other ways of kind of identifying that group. But sometimes this is the best way to do things if we're differentiating. Lower level groups can have an easier task. If they finish their easier task, they can go up to the harder task. Higher level groups have a higher level task, or maybe they choose. So these are two ways of mixing. And then how we create these groups can be random, right? We might say, okay, count off by fives or whatever, or we might have cards and they match their cards. If you're having, especially I think for similar abilities, you as a teacher might plan out the groups beforehand, saying, okay, you and you are one group, you and you are another group. That would be another way to do it. And then also we might sometimes let students choose who they work with, right? Find a partner or find two partners, form a group, something like this. So this is different ways. And we want to be sure to mix it up. This keeps, helps us with breaking the monotony, as was mentioned earlier. And there's different strategies behind these things, right? If it's just maybe a pre-discussion, a random group is fine, or maybe just turn to the people sitting around you, something like that. If you're working with similar abilities and you're giving the groups different levels of tasks and assigned group, something that you've planned out beforehand is a good idea. If it's something more creative, then you might choose this option and letting the students choose for themselves. Right? So they can, sometimes they get to work with their friends, but they don't always get to work with their friends. All right, so there are many advantages for group work. For the learners, we talked about those. Also for the teacher, it gives the teacher a little break. It doesn't mean the teacher goes and sits down or, logs on to Facebook, but the teacher doesn't have to be the center. The teacher can walk around, monitor the different groups. If the teacher notices that one group really needs some help, the teacher is able to go and deal with that, things like that. So it's beneficial for everyone. However, there are also challenges and difficulties. So here I'm looking for your input again. Those of you who have had challenges and difficulties, what have you experienced? Or maybe some combinations or suggestions I made earlier have you anticipating, well, if I did that, this would happen. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. I think it was Anne who mentioned earlier in the chat, one issue is that group work can be burdensome for students who find themselves in a group that's not participating well. And they find that they have to do all the work because they're not going to turn in nothing. They're going to make sure that their group turns in something, but they see that they're not really in a group, they're working alone because no one else is participating. That's definitely a challenge. What else? Go ahead, Josiah.
Well, another challenge would be if I am in a group whereby the task which is being discussed is too high for my knowledge. So sometimes you feel inferior if a group of 5 people who are portraying a high level of knowledge. You are given a topic in engineering and you've never entered an engineering class, not even physics class. So you just look stranded and you're not participating in any way. So I think the knowledge of the content to be discussed can make somebody feel off, may make somebody feel out of place in a discussion. I think that's one.
I agree. That's a bad feeling, isn't it? When you get into your group and you realize, oh, everybody here knows more than me. It's not a good feeling. Judith says there may not be adequate time for all groups to present. Yeah, that's true too. A lot of times the ending of group work is a group presentation, right? But it's very easy to run out of time for that. And then that can be discouraging, right? This group did all this work and now they don't have a chance to show what they've done, right? Good point, Judith. Adara says students might be working on the wrong task. That's true, right? Sometimes we find that while ZPD can help bring students to a higher level, sometimes when we look deeper into groups, we find basically the blind leading the blind, right? You look over and you say, what are you guys doing? Well, she said we should do this and she said we should do this, and they're doing something completely wrong. Yes. Good point.
Yeah, yes, Mina.
Yeah.
Yes, in a group you may find one learner can dominate the group and not give the others the chance maybe to contribute, even if it's off the mark, giving even wrong choices, but because of he dominates and sort of controls the group and doesn't allow others to participate.
That's a great point. Yes, I have seen that many times, right? It really undermines the whole point of group work. Instead, we have basically someone who has become a teacher to the whole group. So it's no longer learner-centered except for that person. And if sometimes they lead them in the complete wrong direction too. Yes, I have seen that. Good point. Thank you. I see in the chat, Irene, you have said miscommunication do you mean between the people in the group? I'd like to see more about that. I definitely do think that's an issue. When I see that, I think of maybe students hurting each other's feelings because of miscommunication, but I'm not sure if that's what you have in mind. Nancy, the joyriders, yes, they're just hanging on for the ride. When the group presents their beautiful thing, they're smiling along with it. Oh, look what we did, but actually they have done nothing, right? So we can have basically the opposite of what Frederick was talking about, people taking advantage of the group to do nothing and not actually participating. Yes, related to that, you may have the whole group doing this, right? They don't have a teacher there watching everything they do. And so they're just maybe chatting about whatever, not being serious, not staying on task, and wasting time arguing. Yes. So I mentioned that conflict resolution, negotiation, these are skills, but they're not masters of these skills yet, right? And so they may waste the whole time arguing. Actually, this happened to me last year with a group of adults in Uzbekistan. We had some of the best teachers in the country had come for a TESOL training course, and we did a lot of group work. And one group, I knew the teachers in the group, they were all very smart teachers, but the final thing they presented was terrible and not well thought out. And when I talked to them, it turned out that because all of them were high level, they could not agree with each other. They all thought they had the best idea. So we find that even sometimes with adults, this can happen. They spent the whole time arguing. All right. I'm sorry, I'm noting some of these things because I want to see if what we talk about next will, how many of these we can address. All right. Let me think, were there any others that I could think of? I think you've mentioned the most popular issues that we have with group work. Okay. One other thing, this is not really a challenge, but something I think we should think about when we're doing group work, because I have noticed it myself. Before I delve into that, I see, lack of resources. That's true, Margot. When we do group work, we often have some resources or materials, and we need to make sure that we have enough for everybody. Otherwise, one group takes everything, and not everybody has them. Right? Good point. So when we think about group work, there are two ways group work can happen. They can happen with cooperation or they can happen with collaboration. And honestly, until I taught the TESOL course that I had just mentioned, I had never thought about the difference between these two things. Cooperation, we often think of them as synonyms, and generally they are, but they're actually a little bit different. In cooperation, the team members divide up the task into their own parts. And so they work together to divide, but then they take their pieces away, and then maybe they work together to put them back together at the end. But we see that there's actually a minimum of group work here. An example would be a non-educational example would be if I said, okay, we're going to cook a dinner. You 5 people are in charge. So maybe one of you said, okay, I'll make the salad, I'll make the meat, I'll make a side dish, I'll make the dessert, and I'll be in charge of drinks. And so they worked together to divide the tasks, but then they went away, they made the different things at home, and then they put on the dinner together and everyone says, oh, you guys are a great team. And yeah, they were a great team, but they actually probably didn't need to work together very much. This might also happen sometimes we see in a project. Maybe one student writes the draft, another person does drawings for it, another person presents it, another person maybe holds something. But if we look at that group, we often see that some people aren't doing anything. And if we go over and say, why aren't you doing anything? They might say, oh, I already did my part, or, oh, my part is at the end. And so we don't see full engagement in that type of work. With collaboration, this is where we have group work where everybody has to work together the entire time. So it's not something that they can split apart. If we go back to the dinner that I mentioned, maybe we say instead, I don't know how people would cook a dinner all together. I guess they would have to help each other with each step of it. Or if we're doing group work in the class, you might say, no, everyone has to speak at the end. Everybody has to take turns writing something down. Everybody has to contribute at least one idea that's in the final product. And so this is more collaborative, and it forces the students to work together every step of the way. We won't look over and see somebody just sitting there saying, I'm done, because their team is not done. So as long as their team is not done, they still have work to do. So this is something that's tricky, but that I've noticed sometimes I realize that whatever the task I gave actually promoted cooperation, but didn't promote collaboration. And we'll look at some ways that we can kind of make sure that the project is, or the work is, more collaborative than cooperative. In the chat, I see Nancy says, I thought group work would be a way of utilizing scarce resources where they share what is available compared to individual students. Yeah, that's a good point, Nancy. That was my first thought too. If I have 50 students, then maybe I only need 10 sets of whatever it is instead of 50 sets of whatever it is. But then I thought also about, like, I don't know, if I have paper and markers and things like that, that it's probably something I wouldn't do with individuals, something I would do with a group. But then I realized that, especially if I'm not paying attention, one group has taken everything and there's not enough for everyone. Or I brought markers and I didn't check them and some of them don't work. And so one group ends up with ones that aren't so great. I think often with group work, we feel more comfortable bringing in materials and resources because we think we need less. And then sometimes it can turn out that we actually don't have all the things we need. So yes, I see what you're saying, but yes, it's also a problem I've run into. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 strategies that can be used separately, but because of time, I'm going to put all these 3 strategies together in the activity we're going to do. So the first strategy is giving assigned roles to the people in the group. So this is one way that we can ensure participation by making sure that everybody has a specific job. So one person might be the timekeeper, one person might be the presenter, one person might be the note taker, one person might, I don't know, be in charge of collecting whatever materials. I will say that this does lend itself to making the final product or the whole process more cooperative, where people have separate jobs rather than collaborative. But I think it's very useful when you have situations where people aren't participating, or in the beginning, if you're working with learners who are not experienced with group work. So this might be younger learners or students who are used to a less learner-centered classroom. They kind of need to be trained in how to work as a group. And so by giving specific tasks to each member, then this is a way of ensuring and kind of teaching them what to do. This also is helpful for shy students or a student like the one Caroline mentioned in the beginning. Some people don't work well in groups because they don't really know how to do what to do. Maybe everybody else is talking and they're too shy to speak up. But if they have a specific job that they're responsible for, it gives them a little bit more ownership. And gives them kind of these constraints to work within. And so it can be something very helpful. You'll see that we'll have assigned roles and that you'll each have to choose something for our activity. So that's one thing that can help. As learners get better and they become better group workers, better team workers, we can do less and less of this, but it is a nice way to scaffold group work. Next, we have peer and self-evaluations. So at the end, or if it's a long-term thing during, but usually this comes at the end, we can have students evaluate themselves or their teammates. And this is a way to ensure participation and accountability. For example, in the class I taught at Messeno last session, they had a group work to do. And when they turned in everything, they also had to turn in a list of each member's name and what specifically they did. If they had a certain idea, or if they researched it, or if they ended up, they had to make a poster, if they ended up making the poster. So they had to specifically say what each team member did. So this was to create autonomy or accountability. Of course, it's possible that they lied, but if you have them do this, what's the word, secretly, then it can really help. Also, I had a teacher in college who, after the group work, everyone had to turn in and say what they thought about their team members. Did their team members do everything they should do? And nobody else saw this. It was turned in directly to the teacher. And it was just really short, so she could check it and make sure that everybody did what they're supposed to do. And we can also have teammates assess themselves. Did I do what I was supposed to do? And this can help to promote self-awareness and increase autonomy, that learners can realize, okay, I need to work on this area. So that's something else we can do. And then finally, this strategy, numbered heads, is a way to call on students. This doesn't work with all types of teamwork. It doesn't work necessarily like if you have presentations, but this works well. Maybe you have students reading a text in groups and then they have to answer questions, or maybe they're doing grammar exercises as a group or having a discussion with questions. So you'll see how this works in a minute, but this is a strategy to kind of add a little bit of unpredictability. In it, no student knows who will speak. Any student can be called on, but they know that they might be called on. And so within the group, they're working together to make sure everybody in that group knows the answer, so that they can share it and not embarrass their group. So this promotes teamwork. And I don't know, for some reason, students find it kind of fun. Hopefully you will too. Okay. So we're going to try out these three things all together in one activity. So I have here 6 images. They are strange images, and you're going to be working in a group. In the group, each member of the group should choose one image, and then they have a choice. They can just describe the image in 2 or 3 sentences. So for example, there's a caveman who seems to be yelling, blah, blah, blah. Or you can give it a funny caption, a funny title, if you can think of one. I am really bad at thinking of captions, but if you're good at that, that might be something you do. Or you can make a short dialogue. You'll notice that there's at least 2 people or beings in each picture. So you could imagine what these 2 are saying. You could imagine what this armed person is saying to this fish, or maybe what these fish are saying. So you can make a short little dialogue. This is, so even though each team member is responsible for an image, you should feel free to help each other out. So if you notice somebody in your team is having a hard time, you can help them. Or if they say something and you say, oh, you should add this to it, maybe it gives you an idea. Remember, you were a team, so you can help each other out. There will be there would be a maximum of 6 of you in the group, but try not to choose the same image. If one person goes first, then you should choose a different image. If you have ideas about the image, you can contribute to them to that person. But you're going to want to make sure you also listen to what your teammates say. So this would be an example of, I don't know, is that a dialogue or a caption? Something that you can add. Okay, so after, we're going to go into breakout rooms to do this. And after you come back, I will randomly choose one of the images. Then I will randomly choose one of the groups. So for example, group number 3. And then in that group, I will number you off and I will randomly choose a number. So usually I let you speak. I usually take volunteers, but for this activity, I will be specifically calling on you. If you can't use your microphone, no problem, you can answer in the chat. But the point of this is that everybody needs to be ready to answer, which means that you need to make sure to listen to your teammates. Are there any questions about what we will be doing? Okay, Margot and Nancy, since you're both here, Margot, you are 1 and 2, and Nancy, you are 3 and 4. Got that?
Okay.
Okay. And I think you know your room 3. If you don't worry about that, I'll keep that here. And I think everyone is back. So before we go any further, I'm going to assign you your numbers. So your job is to remember your number. So in room 1, I have the chairman as number 1. Khadijah, you are number 2. Lorian, you're number 3. And Ludia, you are number 4. In room 2, Judith, you are number 1 and number 2. And Mary, you are number 3 and number 4. Margot and
Sorry,
Nancy.
can you come back? Can you
Sure.
come back to the previous?
Yes, room 1. I have the chairman as 1, Khadijah as 2, Lorian, you're 3, and Ludia is 4.
Okay.
Okay. Margot and Nancy know their numbers. And room 4, you lost Caroline. So Mary, you're 1 and 2, and Adara, you're 3 and 4. If Caroline rejoins us, then we'll give her a number. So I have a die because we have 6 images. And your groups have 2 or 4 people. So I have some numbers here that I will mix up, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, rolling the dice. It is a 6. So we're going to start out with image 6. Also, if I call in your group and your group didn't choose that image, then you can just say skip. Okay, so I'm mixing these up. First, I'm going to choose the group. Oh, here. Trying to do it randomly. Okay.
Hey, Nina,
Hey.
I didn't get you. So you said I'm number 2. Does it mean I'm supposed to talk about the image 2?
No, it does not. You get to talk about, no, it does not. If I call on you, you'll be image, whatever the dice says.
Oh, okay.
I know this is a little confusing. Bear with me. Okay, so the number I chose first is 4. That means it's going to be group 4 that I'm choosing. So either Mary or Adara. And now I'm shuffling again, shuffling. And I choose a 1. So Mary, not Mary Momo, but Mary in group 4, you're to share with us what your group said about 6. You can unmute yourself or you can use the chat, whichever is better for you. And if your group didn't get to 6, then you can just say skip.
Skip.
Okay, that was easy. All right, I'm going to roll the dice again. It's a 2, so we're going to be looking at image 2.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, Mary, since I have you here, did your group talk about two?
Yeah, we did talk about picture 2.
Okay, then please tell us about picture 2.
Yeah, I was with Adela there, and we gave it a caption and called it Fun Time.
And why?
Because it appears like these guys are cruising in a space. There appears to be some planets by the side of this the jet they are using. I don't know whether it is a jet or it looks like a funny car, but
Space
it
car.
appears like yeah, that space car. So there appears to be some planet. So it is in the space. That is why we said called Fun Time. Like these guys had decided to go to space. And then now we went for the dialogue.
Oh, 2. All right.
Yeah. And then there's this guy who is scared and he's asking his friend what he thinks he's doing. And the other one appears to be having a lot of fun, and he's saying that he wants to reach their destination. Then the other one is afraid that they might crash. The other one appears not to be bothered so much about that. He is so much interested in getting to their destination. Yeah.
Excellent. Actually, I think
Yeah.
you've done all 3. I think you described the image, captioned it, and gave a dialogue.
Yeah, that is what we tried to do.
Excellent. Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, I ended up with 6 again. Let's see if we get a group that has talked about 6. I have group 2 here. So this is Judith and Mary Momo's group. And let's see who's going to speak in that group. 2. So Judith, did your group speak about image 6?
No, pass.
Okay, well then I'm gonna roll the dice, but since I have you here, oh, I'll get a 6 again. How about 3? Did you talk about 3?
Yes, we did.
Okay, please share.
So in number 3, we said there is a large greenish fish. You can see a large greenish fish. And then there are 6 yellow fish, and seems like they're trying to fight. They're trying to, okay. Then we see a hand, a hand that has come in between them, which seems to be saying, don't fight one another. But among the yellow fish, there are 2 who seem to be stubborn and want to fight. So that's what we talked about. We said that. The caption is fish fight. And the last question was, what is the last question again?
Oh, dialogue, which you didn't have to do all 3, but if you did, great.
Oh, well, the dialogue is, I think is still describing what I've just said. I mixed the description and the dialogue, where the big fish is angry and telling the other fish, I want to eat you and attack you. But the small fish most of them are running away because they're afraid. But 2 of them are saying, we will fight back. And then a human hand comes and says, please don't fight. Let's have peace. That's what we said.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. That was
Welcome.
great. All right, next image. I have image 1. And I'll tell you, this is either going to be group 1 or 2. I'm taking out 3 and 4 because we heard from them. So I have 1 and 2. Okay, group 2. Oh, wait, whoops. I just messed that up. Should be 1 and 4. Okay. Oh, no. It should be 1 and 3. Okay. And group 3. So we'll either be hearing from Margot or Nancy. And we will be hearing from Margot. Margot, did you and Nancy talk about the first image?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Tell us what you talked about. And sorry, one moment. Okay, sorry, there's someone at my door. Go ahead.
All right. For the caption, we said, my loving grumpy grandpa. And then for the dialogue, it's like the grandchild is excited, showing the results and saying, oh, I scored an A, I made it. But the grumpy grandpa is like, that A of yours won't bring food on the table. It won't help us in anything. So why are you even excited about it? It's more about working and having money than the papers. Yeah.
Thank you. That is a grumpy grandpa. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully all our grandpas are happy if we show them good grades. All right, so I'm gonna go with group 1 because they're the only group who isn't here, and I'm gonna actually let them choose their image, one hopefully we haven't heard about. And I have number 3, Lorian. Can you tell us about image 4 or 5? Or 6?
Oh, we didn't talk about image 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, tell us about a different one then.
Come again?
Then choose a different one, 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, actually, we discussed about the photo number 3, the photo with the hands and the yellow fish. I don't think these are golden fish and green fish, and it is a discrimination photo. One can call it like a discrimination art. And we talked about it. The description he gave, it's like that shows like discrimination, you know, not letting someone or something else joining, you know, be engaged, disenfranchised, being discriminated from being along with different people despite differences. Yeah, that's mostly what we talked about.
Oh, that's a very different perspective than the other group who talked about image 3. Oh, very good. That was interesting. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for sharing. Go ahead, Khadijah.
Oh, thank you, thank you, Mina. Just to add on what our group member has said, we also said that there is willingness. When you look at the green fish is willing to join the other group. The orange fish, they are very busy enjoying themselves. They hardly notice if the green fish wants to join, but this hand is the one refusing to allow the green fish to join the other group. Because if you look at the direction the fish is swimming to, it seems the fish is very willing to join the other group. So the fish is not discriminating itself, the green fish.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. That's interesting. So it's actually this outside force that's causing the separation. Excellent critical thinking from all groups. All right, so the other thing I mentioned was evaluation. So the evaluation is very simple. In your group, did you talk about one of the images in your breakout room? And if you said no, what is the reason you didn't speak? So you don't have to actually answer these. This is something you could just think about the answer. And then, so that would be a self-evaluation. And then for a peer evaluation, I could ask, did everyone in your group speak? And if you said no, what is the reason? Maybe someone tried to speak, but they had issues, or maybe they got kicked out of their breakout room. Again, you don't actually have to answer. You can just think about the answers. If we were in a classroom, maybe I would have a slip of paper and have students just answer that. And when I'm looking at evaluation here, I'm not looking for them to critique each other. I'm not looking for my students to judge the quality of their group work or their own, just kind of making sure, did they do their tasks? Of course, we can change the complexity of these questions, but these are very objective questions. just whether people spoke or didn't speak. And so it's another way to add accountability. One other option we have, there's many others, but something else we often see is making group work into a competition, right? Where we have the best example. And so this can be a great way to motivate learners, to increase participation. We do have to be careful. Some students don't do well with competition, and some students get too excited about competition. So it's an option. You know your learners best and what makes them shine. So it's something to consider, but might not be for everybody. So finally, some reflection. I'm curious to know if you found something useful in your session, in our session, and if so, how will you use it directly as you saw it, or how will you change it and adapt it for your own setting? I'm always curious to know. Hopefully you found something useful from our session.
Yes, Mina.
Yes, go ahead, Chairman.
Yes, what I found interesting is when we were working in the group, we were given a task and we were told after the task, you could choose on anybody. So there was increased participation because we were not aware of who would be chosen to answer the questions. So it made all of us at least to try and remember everything discussed in the group. So it increased the participation in the group.
Excellent. So it worked. Good. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that, because that is the purpose of that, right? That nobody knows for sure. And so you feel like you need to be ready. In a group, if someone says, okay, you're the presenter, once that's established, we even see everybody kind of sits back like, okay, I don't have to speak, right? Great. Thank you. And Margot agrees with this. Excellent. Nancy, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mina. I agree with the chairman, and I have also found the numbered heads quite useful, especially when it comes to interacting with adult learners. I do realize that they tend to disengage when we are doing group work.
Mhm.
And for me, this is not one of the ways I would want to do capacity building. So going forward, I will utilize these numbered heads to sort of get those non-participatory group members to be more collaborative, because they are not sure which question will be asked and who will be asked to do the presentation at the end of the group work session.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad that you've already thought of a way you can use it. But yeah, I agree. I used this in my university class last semester because I noticed when we were doing group work, it was always the same people who were getting up to speak. And I saw that others maybe wanted to, but were shy. And others didn't want to, but they should. Go ahead, Larian.
Okay, thank you so much. I will be using the head, getting
Numbered
the-
heads.
Yeah, the numbered head. I had the question even before, like how you can engage all students and then have them participate actively. And for this reason, I think this one is better because you even, I would use it mostly to make sure that students are participating, everyone being engaged. And this reminded me one day when there was an activity, there was a movie that was being screened, and there was a group of people around, and then because some people were not really following, they were called to come in front from different groups, and then they had to share what they saw in the movie. So this is like you can use this one to assess, check if everyone was really engaged. Someone just with this number, because everybody was being responsible, now everybody is ready to represent the team in general. So I think this is a good way to for me, it is better to use because I had this challenge of how I can have the students be engaged, them being active and take the ownership of their learning responsibility, even when they are in things, when they go. So I think this one, number heads is really, really good at taking home.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorian. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think also, you know, as teachers, we can always just call on somebody. But I always hate just surprising a student and calling on them. In this, they've been warned. You might be called on, right? And also they can't feel like the teacher is picking on them because it is random. Great, thank you. And Judith, you'll be our last speaker.
Thank you. Just an observation and then a short question.
Uh-huh.
I have loved the use of those pictures. For me, I think I really do well when I see pictures. I remember that's part of my learning style, the visual, and of course the writing, and that I will apply. Now so for me, I can use that even to teach the writing skills, the writing what are they? Yeah, narrative, descriptive. I think I can borrow them. So based on that, are these pictures what are they called? Copyrighted? Can we use them?
Yes, in fact, I'll share in the WhatsApp with you all. It's part of a whole book. I think I can share the whole book. If not, I'll share the screenshot, but it's like a creative writing exercise or critical thinking.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. I saw a couple things in the chat. Okay, good. Oh, okay. Understanding the difference between collaboration and cooperation. Yeah, I agree, Daryl. When somebody made that clear to me, I found it helpful as well because it is something that I had noticed, but hadn't really thought to put words to. And it made me more aware of the dynamics that go on during group work. I thought image 6 was a tough one, but yeah, what was image 4? I'm curious. Oh, I know, because they have their dialogue right there. Well, if you do this with your students and they come up with something brilliant, please do share. So I apologize. We're supposed to meet in 2 weeks. Thanks, Evans. We're supposed to meet in 2 weeks, and actually it's Rukia Mohammed who's presenting for us. She has this topic, teaching content in large classroom settings, depression as a topic, which I think is great because it's mental health, which is something I know we're all very interested in, and also large classrooms. Unfortunately, I will be in Zanzibar, and even that was not a problem. I scheduled it so that I would still be able to hold the meeting, but then the airline company changed my flight. And at the time of our meeting, I will be in the air. And the rest of the week, I will be in sessions, unfortunately. So we won't be meeting again until March 1st, which is actually a Wednesday, because that's what worked out best for Rukia. And also because I'm flying back on Tuesday, again, I'll be in the air. But then we will meet 3 times in March. So there will be a flyer to remind you that our next session will be on a Wednesday, not on a Tuesday, and it will be March 1st. And it will be, I think, a very helpful and enlightening topic. I think pretty much everyone here knows Rukia. She's, her field is psychology, so she's very knowledgeable about this topic. And it's something she's been working on and designed for other trainings. So it will be, I think, a really fleshed out, high quality presentation. And then our other 2 topics in March, something that is related to group work, we'll be looking at peer evaluation and feedback. So another aspect of group work, and then we'll be returning to special needs. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'll be hearing from Josiah and from Robert. They'll be sharing their expertise. So looking forward to that. And in the chat, please note that National Geographic also, yes, their website has some really useful things, Margot. Thank you for sharing that. And Mary Mimosa, fan of images 3 and 5. Thanks, everybody. very enjoyable as always. I look forward to seeing you the 1st of March. There will be a reminder. And until then, I hope that you are doing fun and effective things in the classroom and in your lives as well. And I'll see you on WhatsApp in the meantime. Bye all.
Bye, Mina. Thank you.
Bye, thanks. Thanks, Adira. And thank you, Marco. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mina.
Bye, Carolyn.
Bye, Mina. Thank you, Mina.
Bye, Chairman.
Thank you, everyone, for
Bye,
thank you, everyone, for
everyone.
attendance and participation. Thank you. Thank you, Margot.
Bye.
Mina.
Have a good evening.
Bye,
Thank you,
Mina.
Oh, hi,
Khadija.
Khadija.
Hi. Today we watch you from the big screen.
Oh,
I was in a
Thank
class,
you. Oh,
so
big
I
screen.
get to
Wow.
nice.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mina. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye all.